should be a celebration sensation. That's what it should be.
That's a buck is what that should be.
It is a buck. I'll pay it, man. I'm feeling it. Niners are 3-0. People are scoring 30 points no matter what the scenario is.
Are they 3-0, though,
They're
Mark?
3-0.
Are they really?
They are.
They feel like they're, 2.5 and a half because that 30 points a game and an 18-point win, Mark, I'm not happy about it. It's not good enough.
I love that you sound sarcastic.
Totally.
I wish that everyone I was talking to who said stuff like that actually was being sarcastic, so I need your help.
Okay.
I need your help, and listeners, I need your help.
You need to cut these people out of your life.
I think maybe, except for one. I'm related to one of them.
You live with one of them.
And another one of them is like one of my closest friends. But honestly,
that's funny.
I want to let the Niners are scoring 30 points, apparently whether they look good or bad. They go to Pittsburgh and they're like, that's the most amazing team we've ever seen. They scored 30. Next week they score 30. They're like, Brock missed some throws though. Okay, next week after that they score 30. And a lot of people are like, I think they look like crap. And I'm trying to figure out what are you actually looking for from this team? And our question the day after games, we're going to do it all year long. So 888-957-9570, what'd you think? Okay, so we can play with that. But I'll tell you, bud, good friend of mine texted us during the game, and he knew we were there. So he's like, how's the crowd? Because on TV it sounds quiet. And I did say, you know what? There is a little bit of sitting on hands because the crowd feels like they're waiting for something to help them erupt, but they haven't seen it. It was a plodding 30-12 win, if such a thing exists, okay? And then he texts about a half hour later and goes, I think it was when the Niners settled for 3-1. And he texts again, he goes, this game's a dud. And then we drove all the way home. And I got to my son, I go, hey, 30-12, right? Did you have fun watching that? They look like crap in the first half, Dad. Okay.
They look like crap?
Crap.
Okay.
Then I wake up this morning and take the dog out. My neighbor comes out. Mark, were you at the game? I was at the game. What'd you think? Well, 30-12, like, man, they're rolling. I just didn't think they looked very good. And I go, I get where you guys are coming from. There's an aesthetic that you really want that in the back of your mind's not going to happen every time. But also, shame on all of us. What are you really looking for here if 30-12,
right,
310 yards through the air, 0 turnovers, what are we looking for if this isn't it? So, I know that's not everybody by any stretch.
I wonder what the percentage is.
There's plenty of it.
And I know you got hit in 3 different tiers. You got hit by a good friend texting. You got hit by a teenage son who's a diehard who watches as much football as anybody. Yeah. I'm not going to minimize his intellect when it comes to the game. And you got hit by the neighbor who's a super passionate, as I'm told, fan of the station and of the local team. So it's not like you got it from just one faction. I will say this, that the thing that might make me feel like the game was a dud, and I don't think that the game was a dud, but when you get to the red zone and you settle for 3 and it doesn't feel like you're able to really punctuate with touchdowns, it's hard to get excited. Moody was great. He converted every kick. Offensively, you had your way with it. And, Brock went over 300 yards, but a lot of it was on Yak. He made some good throws deep down the field, a couple of beautiful throws. McCaffrey had a drop on one. Not really a drop.
It was a tough one. It was
over the wrong shoulder. He had to turn and make a tough play. But I thought Brock Purdy overall, after a shaky start, very shaky start, I thought he had a good game.
Agreed. But yes, like effective in the end. Did he get away with some early? Sure. I thought Kyle Shanahan, for those who wanted to listen or were sober enough to after the game, I thought he made what was a very fair point, which is you have a player who's in his 11th game, and you've got 3 days to prepare, and the New York Giants employed the most heavy blitz strategy in the history of the NFL. I wonder if everybody caught that. That was the number.
What do you mean?
That they blitzed more at a higher percentage than anyone in any game ever in the history of the league. They blitzed almost 90%. In other words, they blitzed. When there was a play, they blitzed, pretty much. And so he had a little bit of a struggle with that at first. And it did lead to some quick throws and maybe some wobbly decisions, inaccurate throws. Kittle had to bat away what was a sure interception.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. He started off shaky. But then he figured out what they were doing. They adjusted, and he played a very steady game. I will tell you one thing I haven't heard anyone bring up. That throw to Ronnie Bell, that was right where we were sitting. And I'm telling you, that thing with a blitz in his face, and it was a duck and throw all at once. Total anticipation. Bell was not even into his break yet. He threw it to the pylon, and Bell broke, and the ball was right between his eyes.
Great throw.
And I'm like, that is a phenomenal play for a 23-year-old kid. Like, you got to point out those kinds of plays
definitely
that go with the wobbly start. But I don't know, man. When you
that
also,
was on a third down as well.
Yeah,
3rd and 5 from the 9.
Jeez, I mean, I don't know, man.
He made some good throws.
What are we asking for?
Well, we're not asking for perfection, but
I feel like some are.
Well, and that's going to be the lunatic fringe. And I would love to hear from people today. 888-957-9570. It's a Victory Friday, which is the second best Friday, only to a Payday Friday or a Victory Payday Friday, which we might have. I don't know if we're working the day after Thanksgiving, but that'll be the next chance at a next chance at a. Oh, we'll be live and local. We'll be live and local, but that'll be the next chance for a Victory Friday. So, I mean, how you feeling, 49er fans? Are you part of the lunatic fringe that Mark is describing, where 30-12 and you're still not feeling really that jubilant? Because I sat with the great Mike Girangelli and Ed Ferrero of Girangelli's Pizza, my former bosses from 37 years ago.
Wow.
So I sat with them for the fourth quarter, and, the game was mostly in hand, but the vibe up in that section was pretty happy. People were pleased.
Sure.
People weren't, going bananas with joy. That game never really had much drama to it, I don't think. They were pretty much in control start to finish. It never got scary. Brock was wobbly early, but they still got points out of that drive.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. They were terrible in the first half. So they had 17 on the board, a double-digit lead. 17 points per half averages out to 34 points per game.
Right.
That's a high level of output.
And they had almost tripled the Giants in total yardage. It was 244 to 88.
Correct.
And of the 88, the Giants got the majority of that on the opening drive.
They did that for the whole game, too. The yardage at the end of the game, they tripled, essentially, the Giants. Mm-hmm. They won by 18. They covered. Everyone who said Brock Purdy never throws for 300 yards, he did. And oh, by the way, may I make a point very quickly, because I know I am Brock's biggest stan. But I would like to actually feed that animal one more time and say something that I hear. And in fact, our good friend, Alan Stiles, if you're listening, feel free to call in. I'd love to bat this around with you for 5 minutes. I'm sort of out on what all of you know is the passive-aggressive junk that you're doing on social media under the guise of it's not really passive-aggressive. So here, for instance, and I'm not reading word for word, but Alan, and he's only one example of thousands who did stuff like this yesterday. Alan goes, look, Brock Purdy's doing a great job. All I'm saying is...
That's like the new butt.
It must be really nice to have Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel on your team. That's all I'm saying. Now...
It must be.
It must
really
be.
Nice.
There's nothing untrue about that. However, I also would argue we know what you're doing. And we know what you're saying. And I grew up at a time when the 49ers had either Joe Montana or Steve Young as their quarterback. And those Hall of Famers, what did they have around them? I can tell you, for those of you who are too young to remember when Joe Montana was quarterback, here's something that no one ever would have said in a public scenario. Joe Montana is good, but wow. Jerry Rice, John Taylor, Roger Craig, and Brent Jones, am I right? I mean, come on.
Must be nice.
Bill Walsh's coach, like, what do you really have to do when you got all that around you? If you had said that outside of your bedroom in 1988, you better duck, because you would have been put in a straitjacket.
Well, by 88, they already had 2 Super Bowl titles.
Okay, fine.
So that's...
Say it in 82.
And that's... if Brock becomes, somebody who's won a Super Bowl, then the narrative changes. But in the meantime, and it's, 11 games in, I think it's fair to say that it must be nice. Kirk Herbstreit last night on the Amazon broadcast said this is a quarterback-friendly offense.
True.
And
I agree with that.
he was talking about not only the Shanahan and the laminated play sheet and the personnel around him, but everything that goes into it. It's not to say Brock isn't good, and he had a great game. Career high in yardage last night. No interceptions yet again. His last interception was like, I think 190 throws ago or something. It's been a long time since he's thrown a pick. So all those go into his column for sure.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's not that any of that is not true. What I'm challenging is, what are you actually saying? What do you say? When you see that game and that's your first take, I'm going to run over to Twitter and be like, boy, yeah, they're winning. And he's never lost a football game. Oh, that's true. All I'm saying is it must be nice.
Must
Christian
be.
McCaffrey. It must be nice.
Must be nice.
But what are you saying? What are you really getting at when you say that?
You're saying if he didn't have McCaffrey and Kittle and Debo, then you'd be Daniel Jones. That's what you're saying.
Right. That is what you're saying, and that's
Yeah.
absurd. Would you not be as good? Yes. Players who are good make teams good,
right?
And then those teams
If you
win.
want to compare the Giants' skill guys against the Niners, all respect to Breida and the rest of the guys. You had Bellinger and Campbell. I mean, these guys couldn't hold a candle to Debo and Kittle.
No
Kittle
doubt.
like a Nina.
No
and
doubt.
McCaffrey and the rest. So that is a real thing, but I do agree with you that it becomes a little disrespectful to Brock to make that a part of your initial narrative.
Never lost a football game. And did you see the stats since Brock's last interception? So sure, has he thrown some turnover-worthy plays? Has he gotten away with
threw like 5 on that drive last night.
George Kittle, dude, send that guy. Well, we're not going to make Brock send him a watch or anything. Brock only makes $780,000 or whatever it is.
Kittle should get a PBU though in the stats.
Absolutely.
A pass breakup.
Yeah, he saved a pick. There's no two ways about that. But I'll get you the yardage. But it's 10 touchdowns, no turnovers. This is all since his last
Mayoko
interception.
had it. He's like 140 for 190 or something. Look, we'll get the exact numbers, but it's absurdly good. And the QB rating is about 110 since his last INT.